The Forsaken Heir. Previous episodes are available on playlist. A link is given in the video description. Episode 12. Solomon White said quickly, "Mr. Charlie, it's peak time. It is estimated that it is difficult to get a taxi. If you don't dislike it, I will give you two a ride." Although Claire felt a little strange that Solomon White had just arrived, she said with embarrassment, "This is too troublesome for Mr. White." "No trouble at all." Solomon White hurriedly got out of the car and opened the door for the two of them, very happy. Seeing this, Charlie touched his nose and didn't say a word. He knew that Solomon White had seized the opportunity to kneel, and he would definitely not let it go. It happened that he needed to use him too, so there was no reason to refuse. The driver drove in front, and Solomon White sat in the passenger seat, chatting casually with Charlie. As soon as she got into the car, Claire was very puzzled as she listened to the conversation between the two. This Solomon White is also a successful person in Oris Hill. He has a higher status in the business circle than the old Mrs. Wilson. He is usually stable, but Claire clearly feels that Solomon White seems to be playing Charlie's flattery, and he is particularly numb. She took a peek at Charlie, and saw that his face was natural, neither humble nor overbearing, and even more weird. Logically speaking, in front of Solomon White and other figures, ordinary people are only stubborn and try their best to please, but Charlie looks indifferent, and he doesn't even pay attention to Solomon White. What's more amazing is that Solomon White gave Charlie a villa worth more than 100 million, which is really strange. However, Claire had long heard that Solomon White was particularly superstitious of metaphysics. He would still burn incense and worship God of wealth at home on the 5th and 15th of each month. It just so happened that Charlie seemed to have studied such mysterious things. For this reason Solomon White was so polite to Charlie. However, these feudal superstitions, anyway, she firmly does not believe. 10 minutes later, the car had stopped at the door of Zinhe Construction Company. As soon as the car stopped, Solomon White hurriedly got out of the car and opened the door for the two of them. Claire hurriedly said, "Thank you, Mr. White," and then followed Charlie to Zinhe Construction Company. "Mr. Wade, I'll be here waiting for you to come out," Solomon said. Charlie nodded to him and said, "Thank you for sending us here, but you don't have to wait here. I don't know when you will come out. You just need to go." "It's okay, I'm fine today." Solomon White nodded and bowed his waist and smiled. The White family hasn't been doing good business recently. He's really worried. "I have to take the time to consult with you." Charlie smiled and said, "Are you from a chicken?" This year's fleeting year is Tai Sui. Chickens and dogs are incompatible, and the two are incompatible with each other. You can buy some herbs such as Zak Ai, Tribulus terrestris, Kangzu, Poria, etc. Take a few more medicated baths to get rid of the eczema, and the fortune should not be so bad. The internal dampness is caused by the evil, and the evil invades, not only affecting the body, but also affecting the air transport. Solomon White was stunned when he heard the words, even his eyes were almost staring. After Charlie finished speaking, he turned and left. Solomon White was still shocked, and he murmured after a long while, "God, Mr. White is really an outsider in the world. Even the eczema on my thigh can be counted, even my wife doesn't know it." With a look of worship, he respectfully bowed to Charlie's back, and bowed deeply. It seems that he insisted on holding Charlie's golden thigh, he was holding it right. Solomon White looked complacent and snorted coldly, "Old soul, don't think that if you walked up to Mr. Charlie's big tree, you were lucky. I hold my thighs by my strength, and I am no worse than you." Charlie walked into the hall and sent Claire into the interview room. Claire entered the interview room. There were still a few interviewers. She was queuing. Charlie was boring and wandered around the hall. He glanced downstairs from the window, and saw that Solomon White was still waiting. He couldn't help but shook his head. The White family had no choice but to treat him as an ancestor. In the office, Chiang Han sat behind his desk, with his legs on the table, holding his mobile phone with interest, and flirting with several women on a mobile app. At this moment, the phone buzzed and a text message popped up. Chiang Han was impatient for a while, reluctantly opened the text message, and saw the interview plan sent by the personnel department. After that, his brows immediately frowned, and his face was shocked. After reading the text message, he sneered mockingly, picked up the phone and shook the people around him. "Guess who has the letter?" On the sofa in front of Chiang Han, there was a man and a woman sitting on the sofa. It was Wan and Jianhua who came to cheat on Chiang Han. Wan wore a tight skirt with a low cut, hot waves, showing an enchanting look all over her body. While picking her nails, she asked, "Who?" "Charlie and Claire." After Chiang Han finished speaking, he immediately let out a disdainful cry, and said with a smile, "It's really strange that Claire wants to send us a letter to apply for the job." Jianhua said dissatisfied, "Why did she come?" Wan said, "I heard from Claire yesterday that she and Charlie have been kicked out of the Wilson family. She must come out to find a job." Jianhua snorted coldly, "Chiang Han, this rubbish was able to pretend to be coercive yesterday, causing me and Wan to be beaten up. You have to help us out." Chiang Han said disdainfully, "I used to think that Charlie was very upset, but now his wife still wants to write a letter to apply for a job? It's a dream." With that said, Chiang Han tidied up his clothes and said lightly, "You are waiting here, I will now reject Claire and let her go straight away." Upon hearing this, Wan and Jianhua showed smirking smiles. "Now, let's see how Claire and Charlie cry." Chiang Han walked out of the office and went directly to the conference room dedicated to interviews. In the conference room at this time, there were 3 interviewers sitting, and it was Claire who was interviewing. "Hello, Mr. Chiang Han." When the 3 interviewers saw Chiang Han coming in, they quickly stood up and bowed. Chiang Han deliberately exclaimed at Claire, "Oh! Claire! Why are you here?" Claire was also surprised and said, "It's been a long time since I saw you, Chiang Han." Chiang Han glanced at Claire faintly, then smiled and nodded, "Long time no see." Then he said directly to the three interviewers, "You can go out, here I will be interviewing." "Mr. Chiang Han, is this bad? What's wrong? Can't I still decide that a small interview will fail?" "Okay, President Chiang Han." Chiang Han is an executive of Xinhe. Of course, the interviewer did not dare to offend him, and immediately left the conference room. Seeing this, Claire was very puzzled. What Chiang Han meant was that they were all old classmates. Is he trying to open a back door for himself? "Claire, I heard that you are applying for the job this time. I rushed over here specially." As Chiang Han said, he looked at Claire unceremoniously, and secretly regretted that Claire was so beautiful and of good figure, but she was much stronger than those women on mobile apps. It's a pity that she turned out to be Charlie's rubbish woman. Claire didn't know that Chiang Han had no good intentions at this time. Seeing him so polite, she quickly said, "Chiang Han, you are so polite." Chiang Han smiled pretentiously, took out Claire's resume from the table, flipped through it pretendingly, and then said very embarrassed, "Claire, your resume is not very suitable for us. Ability or qualifications are a bit short." Having said that, Chiang Han sighed and said, "Sorry, Claire, your interview failed. I suggest you to go to another company to try." Claire was taken aback, and hurriedly said, "How can you say that? I was in the management in the Wilson Group, and there is absolutely no problem with my professional ability." Chiang Han shook his head and said seriously, "No, no, no, your so-called qualifications and abilities are all because you are from the Wilson family. After you leave the Wilson family, you are actually nothing." "Okay." Claire's face sank, and Chiang Han was clearly targeting her. Thinking of this, Claire didn't mention how angry she was, knowing that Xinhe's work was already an extravagant hope, and she no longer had a good face, got up and walked out directly. Chiang Han smiled triumphantly behind her, and muttered, "As long as I stay in the faith for one day, you don't have to come in." At this moment, Charlie was waiting in the rest area. After a while, he saw Claire walking out with a grieved expression. He hurriedly greeted her and asked in confusion, "What's wrong with my wife? Didn't the application go smoothly?" Claire's eyes blushed and she directly told the story of the interview. After listening to Clary, his heart became angry. This Chiang Han is really shameless. I didn't bother him and it was enough to give him face. How dare he show my wife a face? Thinking of this, he directly sent a message to Solomon White, "Chiang Han of Xinhe Group is a little jumpy. Even dared to bully my wife. How is President White going to solve it?" At this time, Solomon White was waiting for Charlie with his bodyguards in the lobby downstairs. After receiving this text message abruptly, he was frightened. I was deliberately trying to fawn on Charlie. This Chiang Han even dared to offend his wife. Isn't this man looking for trouble for himself? In anger, Solomon White immediately said to the assistant without hesitation, "Call all the members of the trust and board of directors." Xinhe Construction Co., Limited itself is a subsidiary of White's family, so Solomon White's majesty here is like an emperor. Solomon White had just arrived, and a large number of executives from the board of directors hurried over. As the head of the White family, Solomon White, the group of Xinhe people cannot offend him. If he disbands Xinhe in a rage, everyone will have to sleep on the street. Chiang Han is not a member of the board of directors, so he doesn't know how much trouble he has caused. After driving away Claire, he returned to his office, sitting on the office chair with a smug face and smoking a cigar. When Jianhua and Wan heard that he had chased Claire away, they both felt extremely relieved of their hatred. They surrounded him one by one to praise, "Mr. Chiang Han is really awesome, and your one sentence made Claire go. That is, President Chiang Han is a senior executive of Xinhe. Among us classmates, the best mix is President Han." Wan and Jianhua touted Chiang Han, thinking in their hearts that if they can hug Chiang Han's thighs, they will have a bright future, not to mention the development. Chiang Han said triumphantly, "I used to think Charlie was not pleasing to the eye, but now his wife wants to apply for Xinhe, but there is no door for such people in the company." Wan said, "Oh, Mr. Han, you should have taken a video with your phone just now. I really want to see how ugly Claire's expression is after being rejected." Chiang Han laughed and said, "It's like crying, so laughing at me." Jianhua hurriedly asked, "What about Charlie? Did you follow it?" "I haven't seen him." Chiang Han snorted coldly, and said, "If Charlie dares to come, I spray him directly. The smelly wire still dared to write a letter, and I will break his legs." Wan complimented, "Mr. Chiang Han, you are really amazing. How could Charlie's stinky rag compare to you?" Chiang Han laughed and said, "Wait, when I join the board of directors of Xinhe Company, these people will look up and worship me." Jianhua hurriedly asked, "Mr. Han, are you going to join the board of directors?" "Almost," Chiang Han said with a smile, "it's in operation. If nothing happens, I will go in a few months." "You are really amazing." Jianhua gave a thumbs up and exclaimed, "Mr. Chiang Han, don't forget me, brother, in the future." Chiang Han nodded, "Don't worry, I will take care of you." As he was talking, there was a loud bang, and the door of Chiang Han's office was kicked open. "Who dare to kick my door?" Chiang Han was taken aback and was about to scold him. He turned around and saw all the members of the board of directors arrived, complimenting a middle-aged man in a suit, and quickly he swallowed the words into his stomach. Solomon White looked at Chiang Han gloomily and said, "Are you Chiang Han?" Chiang Han was stunned and nodded and said, "It's me." Without saying anything, Solomon White slapped him on the face. "You're going to die, who gives you the right to refuse Miss Wilson's interview? Chiang Han's face immediately swelled into a pig's head, and he was stupefied. Who are you? Dare to beat me? Hit you? I not only hit you, I can kill you. Solomon White kicked Chiang Han to the ground, stepped on his head and said, "Do you know that Mr. Wade told me that I must pass Miss Wilson's interview, but I was messed up by your rubbish. Don't let you pay, my name Solomon White is written backwards." Chiang Han was shocked. Hearing the words Solomon White, he still didn't understand that he had kicked the iron plate. Solomon White, that is master of Xinhe, the owner of the White family. The entire Xinhe belongs to the White family, and he actually provoked such a big man. What is the situation? President White, I really didn't know this happened. If I knew it, I wouldn't dare to give such a thing try. Mr. White, please calm down. Chiang Han was stepped on the ground by Solomon White, and he dared not move like a dead dog, so he could only plead. Wan and Jianhua were even more terrified, and they didn't dare to put any nonsense. Is it because of Charlie again? How did Charlie know Solomon White? He was just a waste son-in-law. Wan and Jianhua didn't know that the big man in their eyes was Charlie's dog at all. They were begging for mercy just to hold Charlie's thigh. Chiang Han, from now on, you are fired by Xinhe, and according to the contract, you are a major liability accident, and you have to compensate the company for 5 million. Chiang Han was suddenly struck by lightning. 5 million, he didn't have that much money even after selling himself. Chiang Han knelt on the ground immediately and kept kowtowing. Mr. White, you give me another chance, I will apologize to Claire, I really know I was wrong. Solomon White sneered, apologize? Are you worthy of it? With that said, Solomon White kicked Chiang Han away and told others, pass on, Chiang Han has offended Mr. Wade. The White family now bans him from all aspects. We must let this rubbish live on the streets. Chiang Han collapsed directly, his eyes filled with despair. The reason why he can be reused is that he became an executive at a young age, and it has a lot to do with him actively signing a contract. In order to strengthen the control of employees, Xinhe has issued a very demanding management contract, which can be promoted after signing, but after signing, it will be fully bound by Xinhe. For example, Chiang Han, after he signed this agreement, it was reused, but he had to work hard and be loyal. Once he didn't work hard, or had disagreements, Xinhe Company would file a huge claim against him. Many people are afraid to take responsibility, so they dare not sign such a contract, but Chiang Han just graduated that year. In order to climb up, he closed his eyes and signed the contract. Unexpectedly, now it finally turned into bitter wine. Chiang Han knelt on the ground, his whole body almost collapsed. All his life bets are placed on Xinhe Company, but now Xinhe is suing him for a claim of 5 million. At the same time, Solomon White wants to block him. In this way, how can he still find a job? Without a job, there is no income, and life is in trouble. And at the same time, he has to face a recovery of 5 million. So besides going to prison, there is no other possibility for him now. He knelt on the ground like crazy, kowtowed to Solomon White desperately, crying with snot and tears, "Mr. White, please forgive me this time and give me another chance, Mr. White. If I am blocked, I don't have the money to pay the company 5 million. Please give me a chance to stay in the company and act as a donkey for you. I will definitely catch my tail, be an honest man, and make contributions to the company." Solomon White kicked him all the way, and said coldly, "Now knowing what's the use of admitting a mistake? You thought the world was created by your house. If you got into trouble and said I'm sorry, you will be forgiven? Tell you, if Mr. Wade gets angry with me because of you, then I will kill you." Chiang Han trembled in fright and his face was pale as paper. He did not expect that Charlie, the rubbish in his eyes, had such a large amount of energy that Solomon White could kill a person like himself for him. If he had known this long time ago, he would rather kneel down for Claire and call her sister as soon as he meet, and would never refuse her. Now, it's too late to say anything, he's done for his life at this moment. Solomon White frowned and noticed Juan and Jianhua in the office again, and asked, "Who are you two? Are you friends with Chiang Han? Or are you Xinhe employees?" Juan and Jianhua were awakened immediately, and quickly denied, No, we have nothing to do with Chiang Han, we don't even know him." At this time, it was too late to clear up the relationship with Chiang Han. How could they admit that? Solomon White asked suspiciously, "Really? Then why were you talking and laughing with him in his office?" Seeing this, Chiang Han said angrily, "Mr. White, they are my college classmates. They were the ones who encouraged me to suppress Claire." Chiang Han was going crazy, he had such a miserable end, and he couldn't get rid of Juan and Jianhua, and they want to have a good end for themselves. Solomon White said coldly, "It turns out that the dog bit the dog and blocked the two people together." When Jianhua heard this, he became anxious, and went crazy with Chiang Han. "Chiang Han, you drag me into the water. You can't die a simple death." At this moment, Charlie had already taken a taxi and went home with Claire. Charlie looked at Claire, and saw that she hadn't spoken anything along the way, and thoughtfully, he said, "For work, I will look for it in 2 days." They didn't hire you, but they had no eyes. It seems that this company is not big, and going there will limit your future development. Claire sighed and said, "Now that it's hard to find a job, I can only continue to look for it and see my luck." Charlie asked her, "Do you want to go to the Emgrand group?" Claire shook her head and said, "How can I enter the Emgrand group, and the Emgrand group has strict audits and ratings. It would be embarrassing for me to start from the grassroots level." Charlie sighed and said, "My wife, in fact, I think you should start your own business." "Start my own business?" Claire asked in surprise, How to create? Charlie said, you have been in this industry for many years, and you have accumulated a lot of contacts. Doris of the Emgrand Group seems to be very good with you. Solomon White is now counting on me to show him Feng Shui. That can also help. Claire laughed at him and said, you have to start a company with at least 2 to 3 million in capital, and there will be more subsequent investments. How can we have so much money to invest in it? Charlie said, I can help you find a solution for the funding problem. I still know a few people. Charlie smiled and said, if you really have this idea, the registered capital is not a problem. Claire raised her head and said, Charlie, I know that you know many business friends like President White. It is not a problem to borrow funds, but to be honest, I am under a lot of psychological pressure and I might as well invest less. One point, I opened my own personal studio, and then went to help major construction companies draw design drawings. Charlie said immediately, no matter what decision you make, I will support it. Claire nodded gratefully, and said, I want to build the studio first and then do it well. The people in the Wilson family think that I can't leave the Wilson company, and I will let them see if I can do it or not. Charlie thought for a while, nodded and smiled, I support you, but if you encounter any problems at work, you can tell me and we will solve them together. The big deal, I will be an employee for you, your husband has no other skills. But I can still carry your bag while driving. Okay. Claire nodded, her expression slightly moved. The decision actually took a great risk. If she doesn't go to work, the family's biggest source of income will be cut off, and even if she opens a design studio, she still needs to rent an office, buy office equipment, etc. This also requires a certain amount of capital investment. What's more, the Wilson Company and the major construction companies in Oris Hill City have business contacts, they will be suppressed secretly. But Charlie didn't even think about it, and categorically supported her. Claire's heart couldn't be said to be unmoved. When she was in a complicated mood, she heard Charlie's sentence again. My wife, you can just let it go, if it doesn't work, I will find a job to support you. At this moment, Claire held her breath, a soreness rushed to her nose, and her eyes were almost red. It was as if she was running into a wall and lost her soul. She did not expect that her husband, who she felt was worthless, still firmly believed in her and supported her. Because Charlie urged Claire to start a business, Claire was thinking about it all night by herself, until the next morning. Her face was still full of fatigue. After waking up, Claire hurriedly started to wash. Charlie asked distressedly, why don't you sleep more, my wife? Why do you get up in such a hurry? Claire said, I'm going to the future company, so I must not be late. Charlie asked, future company? Going for an interview again? No. Claire shook her head, hesitated and said, I'll try to pull some projects. Okay. Charlie said with a smile, if you start a construction company, I'll work for you. A construction company started as soon as it was opened. Funds and connections are all problems. Claire said, I am going to build an office. Let me start with the studio. I will help the construction company draw a design. A certain number of contacts will accumulate some funds before registering the company. Charlie smiled and said, money and connections are not a problem. If you really want to start a company, I will open one for you. No, Claire rejected his kindness without thinking, and said seriously, I want to try it myself first, and then talk about where you get the resources. The construction company can't just be opened like that. Charlie said, I have the money to start a company, and I also have the contacts you want. Now the Emgrand Group's investment covers almost 70% of Oris Hills Industries, and it's easy to get some design contracts in the construction industry. Claire thought he was joking and waved her hand angrily. You don't understand things in the construction industry. I will do it myself for investment matters, so you don't have to worry about it. To register a construction company, at least 10 million startup capital is required, and working capital is also needed. Where would he get that money? Even if he had the money in his hands, he couldn't have the connections in the construction industry. Charlie was speechless for a while, and his wife left his ready-made resources without using them, and had to start from scratch by herself. He really didn't know what to say. As soon as Claire left forefoot, Elaine, mother-in-law on the back foot, came back. Her pension also counted on the Wilson Group, so she often went to the Wilson Group for these 2 days. Although Claire's family broke with the Wilson family, Elaine thought about reconciliation as before. Where did Claire go? It looks like someone is looking for a project. What kind of project? Do you really want to leave the Wilson family? Elaine said angrily, isn't it just a little misunderstanding, just made a fuss like this, arguing to cut off relations with the Wilson family, what will it look like? Jacob was taken aback for a while and looked up and down Elaine. My wife, you went to Wilson's house, and you got confused by the old Mrs. Wilson's scolding. What kind of confusion? I'm not confused at all. Elaine sat down on the sofa angrily. Tomorrow you will go to Wilson's house with me and confess a mistake to the Lady Wilson. The Lady Wilson is your mother, and the eldest man is your eldest brother. The blood relationship will be retained as much as possible. Jacob's expression was not good, and he said angrily, they want to sell my house and rob Charlie's villa. They didn't regard me as Wilson family from beginning to end. If you want to apologize, I won't step in again. One step from the Wilson family is the best for me. Seeing Jacob, who had always been honest, had a tough attitude this time, Elaine was so angry that she turned to Charlie and said, Charlie, your father is a dead brain, you come to judge. With 3 of us, there was no overnight feud. You opened your mouth and said things that sever the relationship, this is too trifling. Besides, my pension also counts on the Wilson Group. She is confused. She wants to seize my property, robbed Charlie's villa, and said she wants Claire to divorce and marry another man. Is this confusion? Jacob became angry all of a sudden, stood up and said, "You go to Wilson's house and they will give you a bit of mischievous soup, you believe it?" Seeing the father-in-law and mother-in-law arguing, they both pulled themselves to judge. Charlie's head grew big. He quickly found an excuse. "Claire asked me to pick her up. I'm going out." After speaking, Charlie hurriedly walked out of the gate, and there was a quarrel between the two behind him. It is difficult for an upright official to decide on housework, so it is better for him not to blend in. Charlie casually found a small restaurant, ordered a few dishes, and planned to mix it up at night before going home. This is a famous food street in Oris Hill City with many people. Charlie was eating. His eyes suddenly looked at the two figures across the street, and he was taken aback. Isn't that his wife Claire? Across the street is a very high-end restaurant. Across the floor-to-ceiling glass on the second floor, Charlie is seeing Claire sitting by the window, and a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes wearing gold glasses is sitting opposite. Claire was holding the materials and was talking to the man non-stop, as if she was introducing her own studio, probably because she wanted the other party to invest. But the middle-aged man was absent-minded. His eyes gazed toward her neck, neckline, and chest. He even wanted to touch Claire's hand by holding the materials. Fortunately, Claire's eyesight was quick and her hands were quick, and she drew away. Charlie saw an angry rush toward his forehead. This dare to hit his wife's idea. The waiter had just walked over with a bowl of wonton noodles. Before putting it down, Charlie stood up with a jerk, took out a red banknote and patted it on the table. "Keep the change." The second-floor lounge of Yunlei Hotel. Claire was suppressing the disgust in her heart, forcing herself to smile, and said to the man across the table, "Mr. May, the company's future plans are written in the information. There will be development in the future. If you are willing to follow, I will cooperate. I will definitely give you the best project planning. Miss Wilson, I know your abilities." The middle-aged man showed an embarrassed expression, but now the company still has several projects under investment at the same time, so the funds are very tight. Claire was a little disappointed. She exhausted her tongue and talked with him for a long time, but the other party was still ambiguous, so she couldn't figure out the details. Seeing Claire's expression, the middle-aged man deliberately rubbed his hands and said, "Actually, it is not impossible. I will discuss with the company's senior management. To be honest, I am very optimistic about your company. Or else at 8 o'clock tonight. Let's talk a little bit, and I'll learn more." "Mr. May, this is not so good, right?" Claire hesitated. "It's late at 8 o'clock in the evening, and if we continue to talk, I am afraid that the results will come out late at night. I am a married woman, and it will not sound good to spread it out." The middle-aged man laughed and said, "It's not too late. Investment is not a trivial matter. We no longer have a deep understanding of each other. How can we have mutual trust? I will invite you to have a supper and discuss plans. Come on, Mr. Wilson, for our future cooperation let's do a handshake. After speaking, the middle-aged man stretched out his hand and shook it to Claire's small hand. A faint light flashed under his eyes. This middle-aged man was named Ping Mei, and he had long coveted Claire, the Oris Hill #1 beauty. Just because of the lack of opportunities, there has been no chance to start with this beauty. Now Claire actually found him personally, saying that she was disconnected from the Wilson family and wanted to persuade him to invest in her new studio, which made him irritated in private parts. He planned to take Claire down tonight and play with it. Claire didn't want to shake hands with Ping Mei, but when she saw that the other party took the initiative to shake hands, she felt that if she refused, she would appear insincere, so she had to bite the bullet and stretch out her hand. Just when Ping Mei secretly hid her joy and wanted to hold Claire's little hand, suddenly, a big hand was stretched out in the diagonal stab, and it was directly held in her hand. Ping Mei was stunned for a moment, looked up angrily, looked at the incoming person and shouted, "Who are you? What are you doing?" When Claire raised her head, she was also stunned. "Charlie, when did you come?" After speaking, she quickly explained to Ping Mei, "He is my husband." When he heard the word husband, Ping Mei's face suddenly became dark. "I just arrived." Charlie pretended not to see it, smiled at Claire, and said to Ping Mei, "Your name is Ping Mei, isn't it, the boss of future company?" Ping Mei's face was sullen and corrected, "Yes, it's me, how about it?" "Not very good, people are indeed pretty lousy." Charlie nodded repeatedly, and deliberately lengthened his tone. Ping Mei was sullen in his heart, and coldly wanted to withdraw his hand. But Charlie's palms were like iron tongs, which made him unable to move. Hiss! Ping Mei let out an inhalation sound, his palm hurts more and more, and his bones seemed to be about to break. "You, let go, my hand will be broken by you." Claire knew that Charlie was strong, and said quickly, "Charlie, let go of it." Charlie released his hand and looked at Ping Mei with a smile. Ping Mei's expression was distorted with pain, and he glanced at Charlie angrily, and then said to Claire, "Tell your husband to go back quickly. I'm not used to talking about cooperation in front of outsiders." Claire hesitated for a moment and said, "Charlie is my husband. He knows about my company, he's not an outsider." "Even if he's not an outsider, I'm not used to talking about such an important thing in front of a third party." Ping Mei gave Charlie a bored glance, just wanting to drive him away quickly, and said, "Besides, about cooperation, he doesn't understand either." Claire raised her head and said softly, "Charlie, I'm here to discuss business matters, you go back first." "It's okay, I'll wait for you." After Charlie finished speaking, he sat down next to Claire. Seeing Charlie clinging to Claire's delicate body, Ping Mei frustrated his teeth in anger. He was really unwilling to see the flesh of his mouth, and he was about to fly like this. He snorted coldly and said, "You are the son-in-law of the Wilson family. You are well known in Oris Hill City. Claire has worked hard to support her family, so please don't delay her work. I will discuss cooperation with Claire. You will only get in the way here." Ping Mei's tone was very rude, because he didn't put Charlie in his eyes at all and wanted to send him away. The poor son-in-law of the Wilson family, most people in the circle knew. Ping Mei couldn't help but sigh that Claire was married to a soft rice man. It seemed exactly when a flower grew on the cow dung. Charlie frowned and stared at Ping Mei coldly. This flower is called Claire, calling her like his wife. Ping Mei looked at Charlie with disdain, and said, "Charlie, if you are a man, don't delay Claire's work. Can you help Claire? Do you have the money to cooperate? Can you help Claire? To the contract for architectural design drawings. If not, I advise you to find a job, deliver food, or be a security guard, so as not to panic at home every day and be suspicious of your wife." Claire felt uncomfortable when she heard it, and said, "Mr. Mei, Charlie also did a lot of things at home. Also, I would like to trouble you to call my full name Claire. I am not used to outsiders calling my nickname. What does he do at home? Buying vegetables? Cooking? Or washing clothes?" Ping Mei couldn't help laughing, and said, "Clay, if your husband can't find a job, our company happens to be recruiting security, so you can let him try." After speaking, he said half-jokingly, "Clay, if I were you, I wouldn't marry a man who couldn't even find a job. I would have divorced this kind of rubbish a long time ago." Claire frowned and was about to speak, but suddenly felt a chill around her. She turned her head and saw Charlie stand up with a smile on his face, and said to Ping Mei, "I have heard of the name of Mr. Mei for a long time, and he is indeed as his name suggests. I also have something to say to Mr. Mei." Ping Mei's face was dark. "What do you want to say?" He forgave Charlie for being useless and not daring to do anything to himself. Charlie put his hands on the table, leaned forward slightly, and smiled. "What I want to say is that being a person can be useless or incompetent, but it must not be without character. Because without character, then it is not a human being, but an animal." After speaking, he held the hot soup that had just been served in both hands and poured it on Ping Mei's head blankly. With a scream, Ping Mei jumped up and he was scalded. Claire was so shocked that her face paled. After a moment of stunned, she quickly called the waiter to bring a napkin. The piping hot soup was so hot that Ping Mei's face was burnt red. The thick soup ran down his neck and into his clothes. The whole body was sticky and embarrassed. There was still a leaf of vegetable hanging on the glasses. Ping Mei grinned and screamed constantly. The manager rushed over with a few waiters and was shocked when he saw the situation, and quickly ordered the waiters to help. Ping Mei took off his glasses and yelled at Charlie, "You are looking for death." After speaking, he showed a fierce look, reached out his hand and pointed at Charlie, and immediately took out his mobile phone to make a call. "Hey, bring a few people to the Giantia Hotel, call more people. There is a poor dog who does not have long eyes, and I need to teach him a lesson." Hearing Ping Mei calling someone, Claire quickly apologized to Ping Mei. "Mr. Mei, sorry, my husband was a little excited just now. Don't tell me this. He splashed me with soup. I have to let him kneel for me today." Ping Mei was angry. Seeing that Ping Mei was getting angry, Claire quickly turned around and said to Charlie, "You go out first, let me explain to Mr. Mei. Don't pay attention to him, follow me," Charlie said, reaching out to pull Claire. Claire frowned, pushed away from him, and said angrily, "Mr. Ping Mei is the boss of the future company. He is very influential in the construction industry in Oris Hill City, and he knows people from 3 schools and 9 schools. I can't get cooperation. It doesn't matter, but there are some things that you can't solve with great strength." Charlie said, "I haven't paid attention to a small company that is not influential." Small company? Claire was almost groaned by him. In the construction industry of Oris Hill City, Future Company ranks in the top 5, even larger than Wilson Company. She was afraid that Charlie would offend Mr. Mei again, and said with a cold face, "Charlie, leave this to me to deal with, go out and wait for me outside the door." Charlie wanted to say something, but seeing that Claire was already angry, he could only sullen his face and turned and walked out of the restaurant. The boss of a small company dared to be so crazy in front of him? Isn't this tired of living? What is it? Claire was so jealous of him, didn't she know that her husband was the strongest one? At this moment, Charlie wanted to tell Claire of his true identity so that she would no longer have to worry about the future, and no longer have to be worried and bullied by the small boss of such a small company. However, when the words came to his lips, he still held back. Exposing his identity means that he has officially accepted the return to the Wade family, and wants to return to the Wade family to recognize the ancestor and return to the clan. Charlie didn't want to go back. Walking to the door of the hotel, Charlie looked up at the upstairs, then took out his mobile phone and made a call to the housekeeper of the Wade family, Stephen Thompson. "Check for me the details of the future company, which customers they have recently worked with, and what projects they have on hand." Stephen Thompson's respectful voice came from the mobile phone. "Mr. Wade, the major clients of Future Company are basically small businesses under the Wade family. They also took a few real estate properties of the Emgrand Group this year." "Really?" Charlie sneered, and after doing it for a long time, it turned out that this Ping Mei was still a squat who ate food behind him. Charlie suddenly wanted to laugh. If Ping Mei knew that he was offending his business dad, how would he feel? Thinking of this, he said to Stephen Thompson, "Help me teach Future Company a lesson." Stephen Thompson asked respectfully, "Mr. Wade, what do you want?" "Oh, you withdrew all the cooperation with the Future Company. I think this stupid company is not pleasing to the eye. Who dares to offend you? Do you want me to let their boss do it directly? Let him evaporate." Charlie waved his hand and said with a smile, "Don't fight and kill at every turn. If you kill him, how does he feel the pain? Just let him go bankrupt and not get up for the rest of his life." "Sure, young master, wait a few minutes, I'll make arrangements." For Stephen Thompson, letting future company go bankrupt was as simple as squeezing an ant to death. Charlie finished his instructions, hung up the phone, looked upstairs, and found that Claire was still apologizing to Ping Mei, but Ping Mei was proud and did not know what he was talking about. It is probably cursing Charlie. He simply sat on the side of the road, waiting lazily for his wife to come out. On the road, Charlie, dressed in ordinary clothes, was just like an ordinary passerby. No one would look at him for more than a second. However, he can turn the famous Oris Hill boss into a pauper with nothing. Claire had been making plea in front of Ping Mei, and Ping Mei's expression seemed to ease. Later, Claire accompanied Ping Mei out of the gate, and Ping Mei's burned face was still aching. He saw Charlie sitting on the side of the road, gave him a fierce look, then turned around and said to Claire, "Clay, for your sake, I will forgive your rubbish husband once, and I will do it tomorrow night. I invite you to dinner and talk about cooperation." On the surface, if he had nothing to do, it was just to please Claire's favor, but his heart was still burning with anger. If it hadn't been for Claire's apology just now, he would have wanted someone to come over and destroy Charlie on the spot. However, Ping Mei didn't plan to punish Charlie, he just wanted to let him go temporarily, and when he got Claire tomorrow, he would find someone to abolish Charlie. Charlie walked over and said to Claire, "Wife, let's go home. There is nothing to talk about with this kind of man who is about to go bankrupt, let alone give the deals like cooperation." Ping Mei's face changed slightly, and he said coldly, "Boy, you really want to die, saying that I am going bankrupt? Believe it or not that I will kill you in minutes. The reason why you are still fine now is entirely that I gave Claire face." Charlie sneered, and slapped his hand over. Snapped. Ping Mei was stunned, covering his face, and then shouted angrily, "Rubbish! How dare you hit me?" Charlie sneered, "What's wrong with hitting you? If I hit you, you have to bear it." After speaking, he raised his hand and slapped him again, and his cheek was swollen high. Although Claire was also a little disgusted with Ping Mei, seeing Charlie slapped him twice in a row, she was still a little worried, and hurriedly said, "Charlie, what are you doing? I'm telling you, don't you just do it with others." What she worries about is not her own cooperation, but whether Charlie will be retaliated by Ping Mei. After all, Ping Mei is also a big boss with a surname. How can he swallow this breath after being beaten? Sure enough, Ping Mei became irritated and completely exposed. He pointed to Claire and said, "The surname is Wilson, your husband's debt will be paid today, I will kill him." Let him disappear completely from the face of Oris Hill. When Claire heard the words, she said angrily, "You are shameless." Shameless. Ping Mei snorted coldly, "Don't think I don't know, the Wilson family has already swept you out. Do you think you are from Wilson family? I tell you the truth, I Ping Mei stomped my foot in Oris Hill City. It can kill your whole family. If you don't want any accidents in your family, you'd better kneel and climb on my bed. If I am happy, I can barely forgive you." Claire trembled with anger, and said sharply, "Ping Mei, I'm powerful, what's wrong with shamelessness?" Ping Mei said shamelessly. Charlie stood up and said to Ping Mei, "The Mr. Mei, you are already bankrupt, so if you are powerful, you should save the time." "What did you say?" Ping Mei was taken aback, completely unresponsive. He was about to shout when his cell phone rang. Ping Mei didn't want to answer, but the phone rang like a reminder. Ping Mei gave Charlie a fierce finger and picked up the phone impatiently. "Hey, what's the matter, Mr. Mei? It's not good." The shareholders of the company that was supposed to cooperate with us suddenly withdrew all our cooperation. "What?" Ping Mei's face changed drastically. "I will call Jing Cheng immediately." "Wait a minute, not only the Beijing side withdrew the cooperation, but also the Emgrand Group, which has a long-term cooperation with our company, suddenly cancelled all cooperation. In addition, Mr. Zhao, Mr. Li, and Mr. Thompson all cancelled the contract." Ping Mei held the phone and was too surprised to speak. But the voice in the phone continued. "At present, 4 companies have called and asked future company to pay huge liquidated damages. Mr. Jones from the finance department called and wanted to recover the 280 million engineering loan and transfer the account within tomorrow, otherwise they would go through legal procedures and seize the real estate under construction. Also, the heads of China Bank, China Construction Bank, Industrial and Commercial Bank, and Agricultural Bank of China all called to collect debts. We must settle all previous loans by noon tomorrow, or else they will auction off the company's assets." Ping Mei was sweating profusely, his face was bloodless, and layers of cold sweat soaked his shirt. Is this world crazy? Or is he having nightmares? How come all the unfortunate things all of a sudden happen to him at once? All of them are like an appointment. What's the matter? What is it? After being hit one after another, Ping Mei sweated like rain. He couldn't even stand firmly and had to hold on to the wall with his hands. Claire didn't know who he was calling, but after seeing Ping Mei actually answered a call, her expression suddenly changed, as if he was about to suffer an emergency. She couldn't help but wonder. "Charlie, is Ping Mei suddenly ill?" Charlie said with a faint smile, "Maybe, he has a brain disease, and he can't even remember what he is." The secretary's panic and crying sounded from the phone, but Ping Mei couldn't hear him clearly. There was ringing in his ears, and his mind was full of what Charlie said just now. "You are already broke." Ping Mei was in a cold sweat, raised his head in horror, and stared at Charlie firmly. Could it be that he didn't know the prophet? He is really broke. Ping Mei slumped down the wall, desperate. Charlie gave him a cold look and said to Claire, "Let's go." Claire didn't know what was going on with Ping Mei, but she didn't want to look at this person anymore and turned around and left. At this moment, Ping Mei suddenly woke up, suddenly raised her head to look at Charlie. Suddenly she climbed up and rushed to Charlie's back. Just when Charlie was about to get in the car, Ping Mei rushed over. His eyes were blood red, he was panting hard, his eyes fixed on him. Ping Mei's crazy appearance made Claire nervous, and she subconsciously took a step back to Charlie. "You did it, right? You did all of this, didn't you?" Ping Mei stared at Charlie and asked in a panic. Charlie glanced at Ping Mei, and said blankly, "Get out." The tone is simple and neat, just like berating a dog. The crowd looked at each other. "Oh God! Isn't this the famous Mr. Mei? This young man dressed like a passerby, dare to call Mr. Mei in public? Doesn't he want to mix in Oris Hill City?" However, just in full view, Ping Mei suddenly thumped and knelt in front of Charlie, and said with a weeping face, "Mr. Wade, I was wrong. Please, let me make a living." There was silence around, and the crowd couldn't believe their eyes. Ping Mei, the famous construction giant in Oris Hill City, actually kneeled in front of a passerby. Even Claire was stunned, completely unexpected that Ping Mei would kneel to Charlie. "Mr. Wade, I should die and shouldn't play Claire's idea. I was wrong, I repent, I will never do it again in the future, please give me a way of life, don't play me to death." As Ping Mei said, he slapped himself fiercely, making it loud and clear. Charlie's face was expressionless, watching him slap a dozen slaps. His mouth was bleeding, and he said faintly, "Mr. Mei, I don't know what you are talking about." "Mr. Wade, once the future company goes bankrupt, not only will I not have a penny, but I will still have hundreds of millions of debts that cannot be filled, and I will not be able to pay it off in my next life." Ping Mei knelt on the ground and pleaded, without the demeanor of a successful person. All this happened too suddenly, and it was too coincidental. Charlie said that he was bankrupt, and future company will usher in bad luck one after another, and it will definitely go bankrupt tomorrow. All this seems to be a coincidence, but how can there be such a coincidence? Ping Mei vaguely felt that what happened must be related to Charlie, so he didn't care about face and knelt in public. Claire didn't know the content of the call, and couldn't help but said in surprise, "Ping Mei, isn't your company doing well? Besides, what does your bankruptcy have to do with Charlie?" Ping Mei knelt on the ground and said, "Sister Claire, I offended you just now, and I confessed to you. Just now the company called to say that the customer was cancelled, the cooperation was withdrawn, and the bank was collecting debts. I really have no way to survive." Claire was stunned for a moment, and said, "I think you made a mistake, Charlie doesn't have such great power." Charlie also said lightly, "Ping Mei, everything in this world has cause and effect. It's useless if you ask me, please reflect on yourself." After that, he took Claire into the car. When Charlie drove the car away, Ping Mei still knelt on the side of the road blankly. The crowd around him gathered more and more, all of them looked at him with surprise and kept whispering. But Ping Mei can no longer take care of it. From tomorrow on, he will become a beggar on the street from a highly successful person. No, not even a beggar. Not only would he have no money, he would have to pay hundreds of millions of liquidated damages. The phone was still ringing, and the assistant's flustered voice came. Mr. May's phone call from the usury company said that the interest rate will be increased by 10 points, and the debt will be collected tomorrow. If you can't pay the money, just chop off your right hand. Mr. May, the landlord of the office building we rented, called and said that the rent will be increased by 20 times. If you don't give it, they will tell you to move out before tomorrow. Mr. May, the phone slipped from Ping May's hand to the ground, and he knelt on the ground with a dull expression. Suddenly, Ping Mei screamed wildly, "Oh my God! Who am I offending?" He slammed his hands on the ground frantically, and at the same time knocked his head on the ground with smashing blood out. Ping Mei couldn't bear the huge blow and suffered a nervous breakdown. He foamed at the mouth, rolled his eyes and fainted. Charlie drove the car, his face calm. The more Claire thought about it, the more she realized something was wrong, and couldn't help asking, "What did you do to Ping Mei? He was afraid of you? Why?" Charlie said lightly, "I didn't do anything to him. I have been waiting for you outside. How can I do anything to him? It is estimated that he has offended too many people. Others don't let him go." Claire thought about it, and dispelled a lot of suspicion. Maybe it was Ping Mei who had offended some powerful person, but he put the account on Charlie. Thinking of this, Claire felt angrily and said, "This Ping Mei is really shameless. He deserves to be bankrupt." Charlie smiled calmly. It was indeed Ping Mei who deserved it. He provoked him, and bankruptcy was the best outcome, otherwise he would let such people evaporate. Claire sighed softly and said, "It seems we still have to find a partner again and see if we can talk to the studio about business." When Charlie heard this, he prepared to say hello to Doris, and asked Emgrand Group to give his wife more orders. When the two returned home, Claire was still talking to Charlie about her next development plan for the studio. But as soon as the two entered the house, Jacob rubbed his hands and walked forward. He glanced at the two with an awkward look and said, "Claire, your mother asks you to return to work in the Wilson Group tomorrow." "What?" Claire was stunned. Charlie frowned and said, "Didn't you draw a clear line from the Wilson family?" "Oh." Jacob looked embarrassed, and said helplessly, "Your mother doesn't know what kind of ecstasy soup was poured into her, so she is focused on Wilson family." So before Jacob finished speaking, Claire said angrily to Elaine, "Mom, the Wilson family bullied my dad and wanted to take Charlie's villa. Why should we go back? At this moment, facing Claire's questioning, Mother Elaine said angrily, "After all, you are also blood from the Wilson family. Besides, your grandma has already apologized to me and said it was a moment of confusion." Harold instigated the discord and made her angry, and now Harold has been severely punished by her. What else are you dissatisfied with? Claire said angrily, "What about an apology? My grandmother, I can't know better. Even if she apologizes, she is definitely not out of sincerity. She just wants me to go back and help her fix the Emgrens cooperation, there is nothing else." Elaine hurriedly persuaded, "Don't think your grandma thinks so badly. It's all a family. How can there be overnight hatred? We are not in the same family anymore." Claire said angrily, "I can't go back to work in the Wilson group." "What are you talking about?" Elaine said dissatisfiedly, "Your grandma has realized her mistake. Do you ask an elder to pull her face down to apologize to you?" After speaking, Elaine said again, "In order to show sincerity, your grandma gave me a gold necklace and 2 jade bracelets." "Mom, just says the jewelry that grandma gave you, you just want it." Claire finished talking angrily, ignored Elaine, turned around and walked into the bedroom. Charlie also quickly followed in. Elaine said angrily in the living room, "Look at your daughter." Unexpectedly, Jacob ignored her and turned away. In the bedroom, Claire was still angry and complained to Charlie, "I didn't expect that the Wilson family would use jewelry to buy my mother. Didn't you know that my mom saw the money open? So did the Wilson family. Some jewelry was given by them, say a few good things." She became confused and forgot how they insulted us back then. Although Charlie was unhappy, he was inconvenient to say bad things about his mother-in-law. He could only persuade, "When we broke with the Wilson family, Mom didn't follow it, so maybe she didn't know the despicable methods of the Wilson family." Claire said, "Then what if she insists on me going back to work?" Charlie said, "You think about it yourself, and I support any decision you make." Claire nodded and said firmly, "I still want to start my own business." Charlie smiled slightly, "I think so too. If you start a business well, you will be able to succeed." While talking, Charlie thought to himself that he should take the time to call Qin Gang from the Qin family, Isaac from Shangri-La, Orville from the Taoist family, Warnya from the Song family, and Solomon White from the White family to call out to have a meal and talk with them. Say hello, and let them take care of his wife's career in the future. Thinking about this, Charlie suddenly received a call from Warnya. On the phone, she respectfully said, "Mr. Wade, it's me, Warnya. I wonder if you are busy." Charlie said indifferently, "No, Miss Song, we can speak." Warnya said, "Mr. Wade, my grandfather has been suffering from a physical illness recently and has not seen what is wrong. I don't know if you have time, can you come to my grandfather's house and see him? After that, Warnya said again, don't worry, you will not be treated badly in the consultation fee. Charlie thought, Warnya was the daughter of a top family in Oris Hill. In the future, his wife would start a business, and she might have to ask her to help, so she readily agreed and said, then tonight. Warnya immediately said gratefully, well, I'll pick you up at night. It is good. After hanging up Warnya's phone, Charlie said to Claire, if a friend finds me tonight, I won't eat at home. Claire nodded and didn't ask much, but just told, when you are outside, don't always make feng shui stuff with others, if they treat you as a liar, it will cause trouble. Charlie smiled slightly and said, don't worry, I know it in my heart. In the evening, Warnya drove to the community to pick up Charlie. Seeing Charlie, she bowed her hands respectfully and said, Mr. Wade, I'm causing you trouble. Charlie smiled slightly, Miss Song doesn't have to be so polite. After speaking, he saw a diamond bracelet on her wrist and asked curiously, is this the bracelet you lost last time? Warnya hurriedly nodded and said, this is the one that my mother left to me before her death. It is as important as life to me. Thanks to Mr. Wade, otherwise, I might never get it back. Charlie smiled and said, you are still in love with it, even if I didn't help you, it had returned to your hands after a while. Warnya knew that Charlie was being modest, and hurriedly said, Mr. Wade, you are rarely seen as a master with real skills, and it is unheard of to be so humble and low-key. Charlie smiled and said, Miss Song doesn't have to slap me, let's get to business quickly. Warnya nodded hurriedly and said, Mr. Wade, please get in the car. Sitting in Warnya's Rolls-Royce, the driver drove the car quickly to the Song's mansion in Oris Hill. This is a typical Chinese-style villa with magnificent shapes and 7-layered gardens. It is full of classical beauty and poetry, showing the owner's elegant taste. Moreover, this manor occupies a very large area, and being able to own such a large piece of land in Oris Hill is enough to see the wealth of the family. Under Warnya's leadership, Charlie came to the main courtyard. As soon as he entered the door, he saw a young man in a suit and leather shoes walking here with an old-looking man and a young girl. Sister, this is the handsome young man looked at Charlie suspiciously. This is Mr. Wade. Warnya's expression was slightly uneasy, but she still put up her temper and introduced, this is my cousin Honor Song. Hello. Charlie nodded. Mr. Wade. The youth scanned Charlie up and down, and then sarcastically said, Sister, would you invite a so-called master who is younger than me to see Grandpa? It's a little tricky, right? Charlie listened, and his heart moved slightly. On the way here, Warnya mentioned that Grandpa Song is now dying and his life is hanging by a thread. The younger generations in the family are all 8 immortals who cross the sea to show their magical powers. During this time, they have invited countless famous doctors to come over, hoping to cure the old master Song, so as to make great contributions, or get more shares in the future when sharing the property. Especially Warnia and her cousin Honor. But it is a pity that all of these famous doctors who have been invited have come back unwillingly. This Honor seems to be a bit hostile to Warnia, so even the look in his eyes is full of discomfort. Warnia said at this moment, "Brother, Mr. Wade is very powerful. I used to have bad luck. It was Mr. Wade who helped me resolve the reversal. He has a supernatural power." Honor said with contempt, "Sister, for Grandpa's treatment, what you need is a genius doctor, not Mr. Feng Shui who pretends to be a god, you know." Charlie felt a little unhappy at this moment. Coming here is to give Warnia face, otherwise, as the young master of the Wade family, his status is beyond the Song family. What qualifications do they have to let him come? Warnia was also a little angry at this time and said, "Brother, you can disbelieve some things, but you can't disrespect them." Honor snorted coldly, "Respect? I only respect those masters who have real talents and learning. As for swindlers, they don't deserve Honor's respect." After that, he pointed to the old master next to him, and proudly introduced, "This is Tian Kai-shi and his granddaughter, the most famous doctor in Oris Hill." Charlie looked up and was taken aback. These two people are one old and one young, and they look like grandparents. But their clothes are obviously different from others. The old master is over 60 years old, wearing a green bamboo cloth robe, a pair of old-fashioned black-framed reading glasses, and a long white beard. His eyes are gleaming. The girl standing next to him, about 18 or 19 years old, was wearing a loose student cheongsam, with short hair cut with bangs, bright eyes, and white teeth, and she exuded a cold and classical atmosphere. However, the appearance of this girl made Charlie pay more attention, because in Oris Hill City, her appearance was comparable to Claire, the first beauty, and he hadn't seen a few. Compared to Claire, the girl's eyes were sharper, and she was vaguely arrogant, and she didn't look close. Seeing Charlie looking over, Tian Kai nodded faintly, but the girl was extremely cold and didn't look at all. Honor again said to Warnia, "Sister, I think the person you're looking for is only in his early 20s. Maybe the yin and yang, the 5 elements, and the warm and cold may not be memorized, but he claims to be a master. People would laugh at our Song family for being so fainted, not believing in medical skills, but in superstition." The spear and stick in Honor's words were pointed at Charlie. Charlie was also shocked. How could he become a liar? At this time, Honor clasped his fist to the old master again and said, "Old she, it is my sister who is ignorant and has gone to conclusions in a hurry. Don't care about her in general." Tian Kai said very modestly, "You don't necessarily have no real talents when you are young, and Mr. Song doesn't have to doubt this little friend so much." Honor sighed and said, "You don't know anything about it, Mr. Shi, my younger sister, who is always scammed when she is ill, she is always deceived." Warnia's expression was a bit ugly at this time, and she blurted out, "Brother, what do you mean by this? Honor asked, am I wrong? I heard that you were deceived by a so-called Feng Shui master from Hong Kong before, and you still haven't realized it yet. Warnia couldn't hold her face. The Mr. Lai incident was indeed a failure of her own. She did not expect that she would be fooled by a liar from Hong Kong. Fortunately, Charlie was present, otherwise she would be in bad luck. However, Honor obviously didn't know Charlie's ability, so he dared to speak out whatever came to his mouth. At this time, Honor said to Charlie again, "Boy, I don't know how you lied to Warnia, but I don't want you to trick my Song family. This old she, the 3 generations of court doctors from the ancestors, you are a young man. Little liar, I advise you to leave as soon as possible, so as not to ask for trouble." Warnia's face was extremely ugly, but she couldn't find a reason to refute it. After all, Charlie really looked too young. This alone couldn't convince people. If she hadn't seen Charlie's extraordinary things, she would not believe it as well. However, she didn't expect that Charlie was very calm about this, and said with a smile, "Haha, it's okay, a small person like me, just watching and observing, never disturb this Zinglan sage hand to heal and save people. Count you acquaintance." At this time, a middle-aged man came out of the house and said, "Warnia, Honor, your grandpa is going to die soon." Tian Kai quickly asked, "Where is the old master's song? Let the old master come and have a look." "In the back house, please follow me." Honor hurriedly led the way and led the grandson to the backyard. Warnia hurriedly pulled Charlie to follow. When everyone came to a luxurious and classical room in the back house, they saw a dying old master lying on a big bed made of yellow rosewood. The old master's face was haggard, his face was golden paper, and his brows were tightly frowned, as if he was enduring great pain. Tian Kai said immediately, "Mr. Song is in a critical condition. Please allow my granddaughter and me to begin treatment immediately." Honor hurriedly said, "Old she, please do it." Tian Kai nodded, but did not heal it himself, but stood by the bed and pointed the young woman to take action. There was a silver needle on the bedside table, and the woman was holding the silver needle and piercing Song Lao's body. She is very proficient in the needle technique, even better than an old traditional medicine practitioner who has practiced medicine for 20 to 30 years. It is no wonder that although she is young, the people of the Song family are relieved to let her heal. This young woman is indeed good-looking. Not only is she beautiful and charming, but she also has heroism between her eyebrows. Both her looks and temperament can be called the best. However, what Charlie looked at was not the beauty of this woman, but her inner body. Because he had already seen that when this woman was under the needle, she could actually use a little invigorating cooperation, which can be regarded as half a fellow. According to the records of the classical Chinese, Taoism has passed down 5 branches, namely mountain, medicine, life, xiang, and bulletin. In the cultivation of these 5 branches, there is a little real energy, which can be regarded as a little cultivation. Charlie could tell at a glance that Tian Kai and his granddaughter were descendants of the word mountain. The Shanzi pulse is mainly based on medical skills, first learning medicine, then martial arts, and then practicing medical martial arts. However, even if Shi Tianqi and Sun Yue were CO cultivators, they were still fleshy mortals, and all mortals could exert only true energy. But Charlie had already reborn through the reincarnation of spiritual energy, and his physique had long surpassed that of a mortal. The true qi cultivated by Taoist 5 vessels was only one word behind the spirit qi in Charlie's body, but it was actually different from the cloud and mud, which was a complete difference. In layman's terms, it is the difference between coal and diamonds. Although the two are the same in origin, coal can only be used as raw material, with limited energy and low price, while diamonds are the essence after tempering, drawing a lot of energy and being hard. Incomparable, the price has also increased thousands of times. Many descendants of the Taoist 5 channels have cultivated hard for a lifetime, hoping to cultivate a trace of aura. Because once you have aura, even a little bit can greatly improve your cultivation level and achieve the purpose of prolonging your life. However, 99 disciples of the Taoist 5 channels can't cultivate a little spiritual energy until they die. The 2 genius doctors are working hard. The middle-aged man of the Song family said quickly. When he winked, his nephew Honor hurriedly held a cup of gu tea, and invited them to rest and drink tea. The young woman quickly put down the silver needle, panted and took the teacup, and drank it. Although only 1/3 of the acupuncture process, Song Lao's face has turned ruddy and his breath has become more even. The Song family around them also showed joy and respect. The woman was also quite contented. After drinking the tea, she gave Charlie a showy look, meaning, "You see how well I cured." Charlie couldn't speak, and there was no expression on his face. In fact, if her infuriating qi is mastered well and the heat is in place, wherever it takes to spend so much infuriating qi, she will not be so tired. But Charlie couldn't make any more instructions. He didn't want to mess with this chicken chili again. Charlie turned around and glanced at Song Lao's injury. His brows frowned. After the woman gave him acupuncture, Song Lao's condition did improve, but this was only superficial. Old Song has old wounds in his body, his muscles and veins have long been ruined, and he also has blood deficiency, and several organs are already somewhat exhausted. The woman's diagnosis and treatment just now only treats the symptoms but not the root cause. On the surface, Song Lao's complexion was ruddy, but in fact he suppressed the deficiency. After 2 days, he will relapse, and the disease will collapse and the symptoms will be more severe, which will be life-threatening. The so-called genius doctor means to let him live 2 or 3 days longer. Seeing this, Charlie made a decisive decision, stood by the bed, picked up the silver needle by the table, and said lightly, "The old master still has a hidden disease in his body, wait for me to get a needle." Seeing Charlie applying acupuncture, the middle-aged man of the Song family suddenly looked surprised and wanted to stop it, but when he saw that he was proficient, he couldn't help but frown. Honor suddenly went into flames on the side, blurting out, "Hey! What are you doing?" Charlie said indifferently, "Song Lao has an old illness in his body. I will try to restore his muscles and veins, and also reshape his internal organs. Otherwise, he won't live for 3 days." "What are you talking about?" He was furious and cursed. "You curse my grandfather, I kill you." Warnya hurriedly stopped in front of him and blurted out, "Brother, let Mr. Wade treat Grandpa, don't make trouble." "I'm making trouble," Honor said angrily. "You can rest assured that you hand over your grandfather's life to him. I don't have the courage of you." "Are you trying to kill Grandpa?" Warnya said coldly. "I believe in Mr. Wade's strength, let Mr. Wade do his work, and I will be responsible if something goes wrong." "You are responsible for the bullshit." At this moment, Charlie didn't lift his head, and the silver needle in his hand was flying like a fly. With a wave of his hand, he pierced several acupuncture points such as Guan, Juk, Shaoyang, and supplemented with a little spiritual energy to enter Song Lao's body with the tip of the needle. The young woman saw that Charlie really dared to give Song Lao acupuncture directly, and her face suddenly became angry, so she stepped forward to stop it, and blurted out, "Hey, kid, you stop quickly, if something happens, you can be held responsible." At this moment, Tian Kai next to her suddenly stopped her, and said in a deep voice, "Hold on, don't disturb him." The young woman said anxiously, "Grandpa, he will treat the patient indiscriminately, and he will treat the patient with problems." Tian Kai said in a deep voice, "Zov, look carefully at his injection technique." Seeing that Grandpa said so, the woman had to look at Charlie's hand. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.